Anna, it's John. I really enjoyed that. I love the free ranging discussion. Just throwing a whole bunch of related but not too tight ideas at everybody. And I found I was just sitting here constantly thinking of what else, other things just kept going through my head. Every time I heard another little story, whether it was from you or anybody else. No, it was really good, really thought provoking. Thank you. And thanks for everyone who was in the chat rooms with me. I enjoyed those sessions too.
Good morning, everybody. My name is John Brooker, and I'm absolutely delighted to have Anna Julia Szabo with us today from Switzerland, who also via Hungary at some point, I think, Anna Julia. And Anna Julia is a teacher, but also is a solution-focused child, if I may say that. And so she's got lots of experience about what she's going to talk about today. Anna Julia, it's all yours. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, John. When talking to Kati 2 days ago, for me it was the first time realizing that you could misunderstand the title in that way, of me being also a solution-focused child. I was thinking of other solution-focused children. Thank you very much for being here, and I'm happy, and I hope you will be too. And we'll see what emerges from this. And I have two things to say beforehand. Please choose whatever context is meaningful for you whenever we're doing something. That the first, and please feel free to misunderstand all my invitations for interactions so that they're meaningful to you whenever. So, okay, starting with that. And then starting with some movement, I think. I need to maybe see, oh yes, I think you can raise your hands even if you don't, if I don't see your videos, but just to get started, who drank a tea this morning? Okay. And who drank a coffee this morning? Okay. And who is in a time zone where it says 10 o'clock at the moment? Who's in a time zone where it says 11 o'clock at the moment? Who is in a different time zone? Oh, okay, good. And who has already smiled today? Okay, perfect. And who got up, and I know it's been a long time before for some of you, but who got up before 7 o'clock today? For you. Who, maybe now they become a bit more difficult, or maybe a bit more to think about. Who in the last few weeks used solution-focused language by accident? Okay. Who of you is deliberately working or using solution-focused something in the last few weeks? Okay. Who deliberately put a focus on something that is already working or working well in the last few days? And this one I was thinking about, it's also a translation thing. With German, I would know what to ask. With English, I wasn't sure, and maybe that's very helpful. It's a question about responsibility, and it's the question about who in the last few days or weeks handed over responsibility or gave responsibility back to where it belonged, or shared responsibility. So something around that. Who somehow put the responsibility where it belonged in the last few weeks? And who managed in the last few weeks to do something where you could trust in someone else, and while doing that, let go of maybe your responsibility? And the last one, who is reminded of time in the last few days, weeks, where you managed to work on a meaningful purpose? Okay, and to get you start talking to each other, John, I would like you to do groups of 2, so to have a pair. And in these pairs, share one of those stories that you thought of right now. You got about 4 minutes. So you've already heard 2 stories, one of your own and one of someone else, being told about some of those focuses. And I would like to share some of my stories of what came to my mind when I started writing those orange papers. And one that was very interesting or impressive to me was the one with the responsibility. And thinking about how the verb goes with it, so what to do with this responsibility, hand over or give back or whatever. And I very consequently tried to hand over responsibility in May this year. Switzerland went back to school a bit earlier than most of the other countries. We went, or the kids came back to school on the 11th of May. And we had 7 weeks left before the summer break. So coming back from COVID, break at home, school at home, and then going, working together for 7 weeks in school with a bit more distance, but other than that, pretty normal. And I decided to don't do that normal or do a new normal, and was very consequent in trying to hand over responsibility to the kids. And I was amazed at how, given that responsibility, they would start doing things and start taking over. And it needed a lot of trust and letting go from me. We started the school day, the first one, or I started by asking, what do you feel like doing now being back in school? And we had a huge blackboard filled with things they wanted to do. And they were eager to do together. There was a lot of, we want to try to talk to each other because we haven't seen each other in a long time. And we did a lot of that in the first few days. And then there were lots of ideas about writing a Harry Potter Corona song, or trying to put ants in the classroom and watch them observe ants in the classroom and in the woods, and things like that. And the amazing thing was to put it on a blackboard and see what we all want to do. After the first week, we sat in front of the blackboard and looked at what we already did of this. For me, I had a few things written down where I felt responsible and kept the responsibility. So there were a few math subjects, and we had to talk about the Roman emperors. That was on my list of having to do in the 4th grade and still needing to be done. And other than that, we looked at it, and I said, so what did we do? What did we manage, and where are we at? And one of the boys, and then I said, okay, we looked at what we did, and then I said, so I feel responsible for these 3 subjects, or these 3 points here, and for the rest, we'll see what happens. And then one boy said, hey, but what? Are we not doing the football game? I said, well, I don't know. Do you want to do it? And he said, yes, of course, we need to do the football game. So, and then giving over the responsibility and saying, okay, so look that it happens, or see to it that it will happen. And he looked at me and was like, okay, but should I organize it? I said, yeah, well, of course. And together with another friend who has been playing football for a long time, they do know a lot more about football than I ever will. And they started planning a football lesson. And at some point they came and said, okay, so we're ready. We need some time with the class. And part of this handing over responsibility was to negotiate a lot within the class. So then I told them, well, you have to ask the class whether they give you time. And we had one of our meetings where we would negotiate the day and see what we would do for the day. And they said, well, they needed 2 hours to do their football practice and game and stuff. And they said, okay, well, we want to play football for 2 hours. And then to say, okay, so class, do we want to give them the 2 hours? And why should we want to play football with you? And the boy said, yeah, well, because it's football. Oh, okay. And trying to or they started selling, or they found the need of trying to sell what they want to do. And after some questions of mine asking, so, and how would we profit from it? And how would we notice that this is good invested? They would start explaining their training session and saying, oh, well, everyone has a football of their own, and they can try to I don't know, shoot goals and stuff like that. So they would start explaining why it would make sense for us to want to train with them. And we decided to give them 2 hours, and they happily prepared, and we had a very cool training session on football. One of the stories of responsibility. Another one with focus was when a few of the boys started their project on games. Gaming is really important, and they decided to want to have a project on the development of games. And they worked for a day or something, doing something, mostly on the computer, which is very attractive, and Googling something, and realizing my focus was when they came to me, and watching them, it didn't feel like they were doing much. So, and then asking them, and while asking, realizing you can ask the focus question in 2 different ways. You can say, well, what have you been doing? Implying that there's not much. Or actually, while asking the question, changing the focus and say, so what have you been doing? And what did you find out? And then really listening and realizing that there has been a lot going on, and a lot found out already. We had a very interesting Google discussion about, they came and said, well, the first game was invented around 1780 or something. And I said, okay, 1780. What kind of game? Yeah, this Nintendo or something. okay, can you show me maybe the source where you found this, and then we can see how this works. Yes. And what did they need to have a game at 1780? Was there electricity? So they went and Googled again, electricity. When was electricity invented? And they came back and said, okay, 1500. Yes, something. Electricity was invented. Oh, okay. So this kind of plug-in and electricity. And if you Google electricity invented or something, then there comes the first article about someone finding out that in lightnings there would be electricity something, and that you could link that. Well, long way to having plugs and Nintendo games, and realizing how, if I put the focus on, and what are they learning at the moment, that Googling skills is a very valid thing to learn. And for me, the shift of where do I watch and where do I focus, and in that, realizing what is already there and what is already happening. Mm-hmm. And I thought of one more story about meaningful purpose. There is mostly every year there is a parents' evening in school, maybe twice, but normally one time a year. And I think I've never gone as a parent, but I think the expectation is that the teacher stands in front and gives you some information about the school year. And more and more I realized that with my teaching, I do want to tell the parents about what we do and how I hand over responsibility and how I let go and try to enable their kids to do stuff. And doing that in frontal speech. So I stand in front and tell them that I'm not doing that anymore with their kids, but doing it with the parents doesn't really make sense. And we thought of a way, or we tried to think of a way to have this meaningful purpose integrated in Parents' Evening. We started this year's Parents' Evening with a post-it on each of the parents' place or chair, and asked them to please write down 10 goals, 10, maybe not goals, 10 wishes it was. 10 wishes when they think of their kids in 7 to 8 years when they're out of the school system. 7 to 8 wishes they have for their kids, competences their kids will have, and when they come out of school. And the parents started to write. And we had a discussion about this meaningful purpose in the end. So what is the purpose of all this doing? And they would collect their wishes for the kids, and we hung up our wishes and we collected together. And it was very clear that we had the same goal, to enable their kids to be responsible people, to find, to be people who accept new things as challenges and as and like to work on it. I had one dad who said in the round of all the parents, I wish that our kids can change the world we live in. And we had a purpose together and could start from there, talking about, so what do we in school do to work towards that purpose? And what do they as parents do to work to that? So John, I need groups of 3. And the question, when you maybe talk together afterwards, or the invitation would be to talk, you've heard maybe 5 or 6 stories now, 2, maybe one of someone told you before, your own, some of mine. How do they inspire you? What thought, idea, something came to your mind listening the last few minutes, and yeah, share. How did they inspire you?
Was 10 minutes enough, Jonas?
It's absolutely perfect. We actually managed to do some what else. So we were very happy with that.
Good,
Thank you very much for generous time. Thank you.
Good.
No, it wasn't enough.
Okay, Irma, I will ask you next. And I will ask you to maybe put in the chat, how did the stories inspire you? Just put in a few words. So we have a collection of what did it inspire you to do, or what ideas came to your mind. The last one, handing over responsibility, is a good example of do more with less. Yes, connecting to that. I realized when working solution focused or just doing what you do and what you like doing, there is a kind of duality. There is work you can do institutionalized. You can, in your workplace, in your families, in your talking, in your school, you can institutionalize things that will enable or make sure solution focus can happen more, or can happen on a regular basis. And then there is the thing of just it happening spontaneously or intuitively. And I was somehow thinking about that and trying to find maybe a few stories in both directions. For me, starting to really consequently teach solution-focused, institutionalized things were very helpful. For example, having people come in my classroom and doing wow, working on what works, coming to my classroom and observing things that already work and giving or reporting them back to the children. So for the last 2 years, I've had about every second to third or fourth week, I had someone come into my classroom and watch for things that are working and talk to them with the children. It started out with coaches and friends of me who I know who are solution-focused coaches. And we started together doing that. They came into the class, walked around and with a clipboard, you know, the things like Insu did, and collecting everything that is already working and giving it back to the kids. And the institutionalized part was to have these people come again and again, and for the kids to realize or to have this kind of regular thing with it, and for us, or for me as a teacher, to know, okay, this is a lesson where we do that. And I realized how with things like that, with institutionalizing it, it became much more easier every time for the kids to start observing the same things. So after half an hour, or I think even 20 minutes, when the first observer did these observations, we would start asking the kids, so what else did you observe that the observer didn't? And they became very good, very fast at finding exactly those kinds of things that actually mattered and that actually made the difference. And with that, like going besides it, the solution-focused language became much more present. And we would start finding, this actually worked. Oh, and he helped me doing that. And you missed him helping me or giving me back my pen because it fell down or something like that. And to have this kind of regular thing really helped to stay on track and stay there. Another very institutionalized, and maybe to add, they got so used to it that the third and fourth graders I had the last 2 years, that I now already started bringing them back to my class. I started with a new class. This Ingrid, it's very nice watching you. Thank you. I started with a new class this year, and I had the fifth graders, which were mine when they were fourth grade. They came back to my class, and they came with the clipboard, and they came and started observing the third graders. And it was amazing to watch. They were there, very important, a bit nervous, and started observing the third graders and giving back what they already learned and what was normal to them already. So I was amazed at how this is a self-fulfilling whatever, it works. Another very institutionalized thing was the strength book. For the last 2 years with this class, I had a strength book, and about maybe twice a week we would write something in there, something that made them happy, some highlights of the week, something they're good at, something they want to work on, and collect all the things they already did and managed and observed that already worked. We drew scales in it, and we collected things that will make the day of someone else sweeter, and try to find a list of what they can do to do that. And I would I would write down observations that amazed me about them and put it into their strength book, or we would write in each other's strength books to have observations that happen in class, to put them in and to make them visible there and to be read again. I had a girl, and normally we would have this time to work on the strength book. I have a strength book music playing, and then they would start and be able to just think of yesterday, what made me happy, and write down. And one of the girls, she said, most of the time she came and said, can I just read a bit in my strength book? And then she would sit there and just enjoy going through it again. And so this for me made it very easy to go back to something. We had some highlight, and then we would know where to put it. So the institutionalized part made very much sense. And the more spontaneous, more maybe intuitive part, they go together with each other somehow. And the institutionalized one helps to realize more of the spontaneous one. So I, for example, remember this story. We were in the woods with the kids, and they could do whatever they wanted, and we had 3 rules. Stay or go as far as where you can still see me. when I blow my whistle, come back and stay off the lake because it's natural resort and you cannot go into the lake, or it's not a lake, it's like a pond. And they went off and started to play, and about 5 minutes later, there were 2 boys already almost in the pond. So I blew my whistle and was quite angry, ordered them back and said, so, which of the rules did you already follow? Max, he looked at me, he was like, which we already followed your rules? Yes. Okay, yes. So we stayed where we could still see you, and we came back when you blew the whistle. Okay, do you think you can stick to the 3rd rule? Yes, we think so. And then they went off again. So this is not institutionalized. It's spontaneously or intuitively happening. And it helps to realize when you somehow have the institutionalized part more. Okay. I think I would invite you to think of more stories in your context, in your, wait, I have, in the context that is most important to you at the moment, or that you would want to focus on. Think of a story of solution-focused something, and maybe, if it's helpful, try to think of where to put it. Whether you put it in this institutionalized order, or in this spontaneously, intuitively happening order. And John, I would ask you to have maybe groups of 4, so you get to hear some stories. I talked to John before about these orange cards, so I have one more. It's magic and surprises. I find myself in school or wherever being sometimes surprised when solution focused is somehow coming back to me, and then just being able to sitting there and enjoy the magic happening. One story that comes to my mind is when I ask, normally, oh, everyone back, yeah. Normally when a kid is working on something and says, oh, I don't know, and what should I don't understand or something, I would ask, so what do you already understand? And then we would start from there. And sometimes as a teacher, you get a bit frustrated or something, and then there is a kid sitting there and you feel like he or she has not done anything this morning or this hour or this lesson, and then sometimes it comes back to you, the solution focus, and maybe it's also about the language. So I go to that kid and say, oh, but what have you been doing this past lesson, again implying that there is not much, and then the kid saying, well, look, I've been doing this and that and there and this and that. And the kid just telling you exactly what he or she has been doing and putting or shifting your focus again on what is already there or what he or she already did. Another thing is that I would normally ask, so who's already listening? If I try to catch the attention of my pupils, I would ask, who's listening already, or who's ready to listen? And one time, being a bit stressed, I said, so but who's talking now? And then 4 of the kids said, me! So getting back exactly what you ask for, and then being surprised at how well they take your, or how precise they take your questions. And this, for me, it happens when I talk to kids on a scale, and I ask them, so where on a scale are you, and what has been there before, and why are you already there and not with 0 and stuff like that. I find that mostly with kids, they take your question seriously and they answer exactly your question. Grown-ups tend to think further and tend to think what you want to hear or something. But the kids, they really stick there and answer what you ask and stay with the language. And for them, it's easy to stay with the language. So this is also sometimes surprising, getting back. And another very delightful surprise. And just, yes, being able to enjoy what happened was when before the summer holidays, and I gave a lot or handed over a lot of the responsibility. There were two kids coming to me one morning and saying, Miss Szabo, can we be teachers today? Of course, I said, of course. And told them, so, well, again, we have to discuss it with the class, like how much time you need and just prepare how much you think you need. They said, oh, well, we'll do a lesson on Roman emperors, which was one of the subjects I felt responsible to do before. But they said, yeah, well, they thought that would be good. And we managed to find a slot for them where they could do that with the class. They prepared the blackboard and wrote the title on it. They grabbed all the things in the classroom which they needed. So I have this was ist eine Klangschale? This bing, the sign where you like
gong.
A gong, yes. So they took that and they got all the things they needed, and they started the lesson, and they got the other kids working. So they had no idea about Roman emperors. They asked the kids, first question was, so what else do you want to find out about Roman emperors? And then one kid said, I want to know about the gladiators. And then the kid said, the two kids in front said, okay, so who else wants to know about the gladiators? And then two or three raised their hands. And they started making groups, who is interested in what. They put kids together in groups, the two boys and the girl. If I had tried to put them together in a group, they would have refused to go working with him. Are you kidding me? They worked together in these groups. The two kids, they told them, well, we want, in the end, you have 20 minutes now, we want some sheet where you put at least 6 pieces of information on. There is the books about the Romans, and if you don't find anything in the books, maybe you can watch the internet. And there is paper, they already prepared paper and pens, and then they let them go. And they traveled, or they went from group to group, checking what they were doing, finding out a lot about Roman emperors while doing that. At some point, the girl was coming to me and saying, whew, Miss Szabo, this is exhausting being a teacher. And they went on and organized the presentation. In the end, there would be 2 groups presenting to each other. And when we were in Augusta Raurica, which is the site of the Roman emperors, which is quite near our school, they would, in the forum, where the Romans would normally present their things, they would put the groups in front and tell them to present their findings about Roman emperors. So taking over, letting go and trusting, and just enjoying what is happening, enjoying the magic that just happens. Okay, and for the last invitation for you, I would have, maybe we have to, I have the suggestion that you imagine you're doing your efforts towards solution-focused working or living or being. And you imagine one surprise that might come back to you. So, in 1 or 2 words, put it in the chat. The things you've heard your other 2 persons in the last chat room talk about. What have you heard him or her tell you that makes it easy for surprises to happen to him or her? What has he or she done that impressed you, and what kind of behavior of her or him can you imagine being useful for surprises to happen in the future? And to let you hear some, we have things that might make surprises happen. Carefully looking for surprises, follow-up questions, hearing that your client didn't like your SF approach and it still has an effect. To look for and expect surprises to happen. Reminding myself to notice myself and my best before the meeting. Every conversation is emergent, lots of surprises. And to expect surprises to happen. Starting the connection already through email ahead of the actual course. Okay. I see lots of potential for lots of beautiful surprises and magic happening in the future. I thank you very much for going along with my invitations and for being here and smiling at me and looking at me. And I go back, John, to my first two. So I guess whether you want coffee or tea, I don't know. But I would close my session here. And thank you very much, John, for the invitation, and for you, everyone.
And Julia, hey, I love your modesty. It's so powerful. No, unlike your father.